What's good, everybody? Let's see if you guys can hear me well. I gotta test out the audio before I do anything. So, a lot has happened since I last went live. End of service was announced for this game that I'm playing. Now, people speak about the game as if it's going to wrap up as an application this week. It's not. We got 3 months. I hear a hissing noise. Let me go check what that is. Okay. That's not that bad. I've been hearing some weird complaints about this game that they should, at the last couple days, completely unlock the gacha so that you can drop all the money you want on whatever you want. Everything is available. And I just gotta say, why would you want a skin that you're not gonna have in 12 hours? Like, do you just hate having money? The point of a disposable income is not that you want to dispose of it completely. There's better ways of letting your money on fire, lighting it. But, they kind of have that with the blue crystal, so you can just use this to build, whatever costumes you want. I got, a ticket that I can utilize. Just to get, any fit that I think is kind of cool. But I know YouTube's TOS is a little weird about gacha commentary.
I got it.
But they did send the plan out. Excuse me. Okay.
I'm doing laundry, dude.
Additional event. So yeah, they got the final roadmap of this game, meaning that by the time I'm back in the city, since I plan on leaving. Oh, okay. I got a couple more, I guess, graphics over there, just updating it a little bit. We got Before Crisis. So Before Crisis, I played like a fan RPG Maker remake on that on my phone many years ago, but it was like turn-based and every fight was exactly the same because there was no RNG. Variety, the enemy design was exactly the same, and the progression system was cursory. It's kind of a bad sign that the music doesn't really shift. Let me see, does it shift with everything else? I feel like at one point it did, you would do some shit and then the music would shift. But whatever. So this is going to be a 3-chapter thing. It's not an event, meaning that basically when a chapter comes out, that's the whole thing. And if you want more, you gotta wait for the next chapter until they're all done. They're not gonna breadcrumb you like they did with Dirge, that 3-part event. These are proper chapters, not like Advent Children, not like Dirge, which I kind of like that. I think I have 2 or 3 streams of this left. there's 2 chapters left of OG, so uh, the data mining that people were doing was fairly accurate, but it left some blanks for interpretation. So the next OG chapter is coming out in August, and then the last one is coming out September 6th, September 7th. Yeah, I think it was September 6th actually. So I skipped through this just because I was curious about like there was no FMV that it starts you off with. I'm paranoid. I gotta check my audio one more time. Okay. No, I have fond memories of Before Crisis. I don't think it's a good game, but I have like good memories of, and it was a bad time in my life, but just going through Ever Crisis. That's why I make references to it as often as I can. I like how they added the New York style bus stops. Okay, so this isn't Reno, this is Rod. He just has auburn hair. Not full on red, but kind of like what happens with my beard sometimes. So, just like I played near Replicant. Hold on, let me check chat for a little bit. That was a post 9/11 style game where they're trying to do like a nuanced discourse on terrorism thing. This is also kind of a reaction to 9/11. I mean, FF7 OG is a game where you play as terrorists, so they had to like muddy it up a little bit. I know a lot of people looked at Grimoire Valentine's content and that had shotgun in it. I don't know if we'll see shotgun. I'm sure that's what fighting Luka Doncic is like. Your speed is not going to be enough. Hey, yo, Reno, the back of your head is ridiculous. What is that? Let me scratch my screen. You got like headphone, like a headband or something? What's going on? let me let me add the sound effects. That combat was just not as satisfying without the visual. So Shears kind of looks like Snow Villiers, just with dark hair, and I'm sure that's enough to get the ladies excited, and even some of you dudes. I like Shears as a character. power creep that you had with him was a little on the ridiculous end, but whatever. You had scripted events with these guys and that RPG Maker remake. But again, the gameplay in the original was closer to like a classic flip phone RPG where it was just Space Invaders, but with like the materia system and RPG mechanics. You move to the left and right, and then you attack with the action button. A lot of flip phone games were pretty much like that on the action end. Don't know if it's a little different when you're playing as a melee fighter, but okay. I miss President Shinra, his white Luther Vandross looking ass. KFC. You know, I've been reading a lot about KFC. He's Colonel Sanders' backstory. That dude, he really had that life, man. He was interesting to read about. Fuhito, the original Avalanche man, when Avalanche started in Cosmo Canyon, and it was a little bit more extreme in its environmental message. I wonder if this is gonna have any combat or if it's just gonna be cutscenes and stuff like that. So, Afromia, I think that's Elena's sister. There was an interesting vignette with her. Okay, so you're talking about the other new Turks. I wonder if we'll gradually see more of them as the chapters progress. But I think President Shinra is the guy that benefited most from the advanced media, compilation stuff, and all the other expanded stuff. They gave this guy a little bit of swagger that he didn't have in OG. That's like one of the few characters I could say that. I hate when people say that about Barrett, but or Rufus for that matter, because Rufus was just so interesting in how his motives would shift as the plot did. Starting with, man, I just want to control people with fear to, okay, I'm trying to deal with weapon and all of this other stuff, but I'm trying to do it my own way. And Sephiroth and Meteor. And I'm gonna still kill you guys, but just because we need a scapegoat, someone to blame to, keep the population feeling copacetic. As copacetic as they can be. Oh, okay, so I wonder if that was in OG, because that's definitely rebirth coded. I'm gonna have to go back and look at the old footage. So this was like a year after the beginning of Crisis Core, meaning that the story is concurrent with a lot of Crisis Core. It even has its own version of the Nibelheim incident, which takes a lot of cues from Last Order, which I didn't really like. Again, Sephiroth basically tweaking out after getting his ass kicked, making everyone in that scene look like a doofus and like a 7-Eleven crackhead anyway. Verdo is an interesting character. Whenever he shows up in other expanded media, it's always like, okay, that's like a celebrity guest appearance. So he basically runs the Turks before Song does. Oh, this is much better with sound effects. I don't like how obnoxiously loud they are in like the actual combat system, but okay, so this is Elfe. She's a little controversial because she was able to hold her own against Sephiroth in a fight, but when I saw the footage and like the remake, which again had visual limitations, it's more like she stood her ground with him rather than like clashing blades and not getting immediately destroyed. I could understand why she's as strong as she is. What's the name of her katana? Before Crisis has such a good OST. Okay, there's the man himself, Sephiroth. That's actually an interesting block. Like, he blocked it from behind. That means that he likely just messed with her grip. Or did like a weird angle where like the bottom hits like the top. Okay. That was a good structured block from Sephiroth. She's not really the leader, she's more like the face of Avalanche. Kind of like Angeal with Soldier. You know, they need like a charismatic personality. I'm really looking forward to seeing another look into the Nibelheim incident because we saw another one not too long ago with Ever Crisis touching on OG and the actual events of the Nibelheim incident. We'll be seeing it again with Revelation, but it's here too. Okay, Shotgun got name dropped. And Nunchak, who kind of looks like Tifa. So Cisna was originally called Shuriken, and she was a last minute like addition to uh, Before Crisis. So I tend to look at after my playthrough of Crisis Core the same way as before Crisis. It's kind of like it's not Final Fantasy Zero. It's not like a direct prequel. It's more of like a prequel that's an anthology story dedicated to this aspect of OG's world. I like the stakes in this narrative better than Crisis Core. It's outside of the novels, it's really hard to get into an FF7 story without like world-ending events. But again, the novels don't have that either. Envoy to Smile, Turks' lateral biography, Traces of Two Paths, Dear Destiny, which I haven't read yet. But it's still they're good reads. I mean, if even Sephiroth can't just one shot this lady, then we're dealing with like a big deal. Oh, I have a little bit of dramatic irony on this, so that's why I find this exchange interesting. I like Rufus Shinra in this narrative. I wonder if we'll see Barrett and Sid's scenario in all of this. I'm a little mixed on them because it kind of ruins how you interpret their backstories. These are characters that were screwed over by Shinra, and now it seems like they're ironically screwed over courtesy of Avalanche as well. But I don't want to delve too deep into that because I'm trying not to spoil one thing and then here I am with another. It's because I don't know if it's going to be demonstrated. I remember this one. So Cloud is protecting that scientist, and he demonstrates some superhuman battle prowess here. These guys have the death materia, and that's like made a big deal. Like, oh wow, these guys have such an evil, like arcane spell on them that can just insta kill people. That was like a badass moment because if you think about it, like we play a lot of JRPGs. The death spell isn't really that scary for us unless we have like a party member dies, the game is over type of game. What really has you shitting bricks is if something like that existed in real life. Which maybe like the equivalent would be chemical weapons or poison is already kind of a thing in those games. Diseases being spread as like bioweapons. But just like an insta kill, no toxicity process, no disease, process like where it spreads in the body. Just boom, you're gone. Her name is referenced for like one of the bosses in Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. One of the sub bosses has the name of that scientist, and there's like a confirmation that she got used as an experiment, which is too bad. Okay, so they involve the other generic Turks. I mean, their personalities outside of a few vignette scenes are largely interchangeable. So, Before Crisis was episodic in nature. It wasn't really like a gotcha game. You would get materia by scanning barcodes of anything that had a UPC code. So, back in the day, like there were these type of Tamagotchi style games where you would scan UPCs to get like all sorts of monsters and have them battle out. It was just an excuse to have your kid be a dickhead in a supermarket while you get your shopping done. I'm sure it gave some people like grief having to deal with their kid just scanning random produce to see what type of monster they get. I think it might not have been UPC codes in this game. It might actually just be you take a photograph of things and whatever the main color is becomes the color of the materia. So, cell phone pics turning into materia based on, like, I guess, the key color, the central color frame. It was that era. Even in like the early to mid 2000s, before smartphones really took off, putting a camera and video on a cell phone already turned people into weirdos, myself included. I remember I would be on school trips and I would just bring that phone out and my friends would be like, get that camera out of my fucking face. And I used to be so scared of having my cell phone out in front of people back in the day. Like 6th, 7th grade, 8th grade, on the other hand, I turned into a full-on dickhead. You know how these like dating gurus would get on camera and just talk about how they were talking to their girl and shit, raise her up, and then they get like an attitude. The women, it starts because they don't want to be recorded, so they'll say mean stuff, and the video would get awkward in nature. I would be like that, but not to like go to my homies. Just be like, "Oh man, what's up, man? How you doing?" With the phone camera, like, get that shit out of my face. I don't want to be recorded. You know what I mean, man? I'm trying to get viral off anything by any means necessary. Back in the day, not now. So yeah, Crisis Core makes Cloud look like a weenie outside of the um, Nibelheim incident when he defeats Sephiroth, but before Crisis makes Cloud look like some sort of killer. So yeah, Rayleigh. This is a doctor that ends up being made an experiment, but I don't think there's anything to show that in OG before Crisis that she ends up being utilized in that manner. Well, at least we protected her a little bit. Oh, I recently got Batan Kaito, so I'm gonna get started on that one at some point. So how old was Cloud at this point? So this is 6 years before Final Fantasy VII. That means this was a 15-year-old Cloud Strife. They are getting dense with the content of these chapters. I guess because you got to roll through all these episodes with Before Crisis. Icicle and I really don't like that section of the original game. I'll be honest with you. The boss fights are fun though. When you get to like the actual like tip of the mountain before Northern Crater, even the icicle bosses. Those are actual bosses, the icicles in OG. So this is kind of the issue that I have with these compilation things and Ever Crisis. When a gotcha completes its story, that's when a gotcha dies. So you promise to tell the full story of OG, Advent Children, Before Crisis, Crisis Core, Dirge, and First Soldier. But the reality is that the moment you finish telling all those stories, that's when end of service happens. It's the same with that Kingdom Hearts Union Cross game. Deeply important story, but once it was finished being told, it straight up died. And once a game reaches end of service, that's when they start dropping interesting content. Like, oh wow, this is what I've been waiting for such a long time, because they have no reason to breadcrumb you anymore. So with that being said, there's two gotchas left. There's Dissidia Duellum, Hawkish Arm Load. Get the fuck out of my channel. I love this track, by the way. There was like a percussive element to this battle theme that was in the original Before Crisis, like a boop 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 boop. Boop. That was kind of nice. They have it a little bit, but it's kind of not as bouncy. Oh, what the fuck is that? That was not in frame. The full text box? Ew. They're like, oh, she's nastier than she appears. You could have sliced her from the back, man. Why were you that inefficient? I guess he wanted to get her to turn around to get the vitals. Death to Shinra. Okay, I see what they're doing with that. You're not subtle. Man, they got that glasses guy looking like a douche. A little explosive was kind of the way it rolled in. It looked like a bath bomb. Oh man. That would be some ninja stuff. Just use a bath bomb like that to make your escape. Yeah, you don't fuck with these new Turks. They're too green. They don't have superhuman strength. Yeah, that's kind of the issue I have with Before Crisis. Like, you're making a whole like spy narrative about this intelligence agency, and you got these like superhumans that can just do covert infiltrations themselves and catch bodies, but I guess you're not going to be able to use them to collect information. They're still just killers. Hey, there's Zack. Okay, so this is with his longer Sonic the Hedgehog style hair. So I guess he did the deed to Angel around now. At this juncture, like NGO wasn't written yet. Neither was Genesis. I mean, the idea for them must have been like coming together. I guess they didn't want to create characters for Rod and Fromia, especially because that would dilute um, the gotcha polls. Not that that's gonna matter anymore anyway. One thing I realized, the towers that you had for like your solo missions, those are irrelevant now, and we added one more like character quest for Zack. Like we're gonna bring that mechanic back, but that was the only one you did after years. So I feel like maybe they thought this was going to extend until maybe early 2027, which is what I thought was going to happen. But they thought, we can't really sustain this any longer. Like, you didn't even drop like a first trap skin of like lingerie for the beach like you did 2024 and 2025. This game is so good at first trapping. And they didn't even have that spirit within them to try again. Okay, so corrupted members of Soldier. Maybe Fuhito got his brainwashing in them. It's possible. Like he can just telepathically give them these weird thoughts. I hate that cliche. I mean, it's there for a reason. Yeah, I can be nasty if it's someone that I can't really empathize that much with. But if it's you, someone like you, I can't do it. Saw that in a movie I watched a couple weeks ago. I get it. It's just kind of corny. It does frame out the morality of the character. Where it stops, where it starts. Oh, look at that tear effect. It's like he had dandruff in the eyes or some shit like that. Look like droplets you would use in like an old school 2012 Android game for like gardening. Watering my plants and shit. bring his dead homies aside, Sebastian. So it really does seem like Avalanche always has a step above the Turks, and even giving them Cloud or Zack or Sephiroth isn't doing much to help. So it's not like, oh man, these new Turks, they're too green, they're incompetent. See, I see you, Rufus. I know what you're trying to do. No, we've been taking L after L after L. I like the younger designs for Reno and Rude. So yeah, no static there. It was just dialogue, which I get it. They're not gonna give us any new characters. It would be like an Advent Children Dirge situation where we'd be fighting the same enemy again and again. But just with like a completely made up party. Am I gonna get the notification sound? No, actually. So that's pretty interesting. I'll touch on all of this later. So in general, I think I have maybe 2 more sit downs with this game. The next sit down, I'm probably gonna watch the rest of Before Crisis chapters 2 and 3, and chapter 12 of OG, which that could be at the end of Diamond Weapon, that could be at the end of Hojo's encounter. Maybe it'll have a dungeon just to give us a little bit of something. But that's whatever. I thought this was interesting. I mean, Before Crisis, there's a lot about the story, the last order references, and just how weird some of the retcons are, how they glaze the hell out of Elf. There's always someone in these compilation entries that they glaze to high heavens, and Elf was one of those. Like, right when she could have been power creeped, is when her iron deficiency kicked in. I know it's not an iron deficiency, but I'm being crass. There's a couple of things I didn't really mess with in regards to that narrative, but aside from that, it's kind of an interesting story. I enjoyed following with it, even though so far chapter 1 is just us taking L after L after L, but that's whatever. It's been your boy Mr. Wonka 7. Thank you guys for watching, and Oxamic Day.